Today, we will be interviewing Professor Randy Schekman, Nobel Prize winner for physiology and medicine for his work on cell membrane musical trafficking. In this interview, however, we will be focusing on Professor Schekman's long-standing interest in and campaigning for open access science. Professor Schekman, thank you very much for joining me. How do the most prestigious journals make money?
I think their biggest profit margin comes from the licenses that they issue to institutions for subscription. I'll give you one example that is in the news now and which I have followed very closely, and that is the recent contract negotiation between Elsevier, the publisher of the Nature and Lancet journals. They have quite a profit margin that they derive from very substantial license agreements issued to institutions. The budget called for $11 million a year from the entire UC system. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot. Elsevier, in that contract period, accounted for fully 1/4 of the subscription costs of the UC system. 1/4 of all of their budget was devoted to an $11 million a year contract. Now, the university has taken the position, one that I've very strongly supported, that they want to encourage, indeed insist on, the papers of their scholars being in open access. Elsevier, of course, has been fighting open access, though they claim that they have many open access journals. They refused the proposal from the university. They countered over several months of negotiation. So they walked away from the table. And now there is an impasse. I think this impasse will go on for a very long time. Now, to give you an idea of the unacceptable profit margin that Elsevier has extracted from institutions, they are one of the most profitable companies in the world with a near 40% profit margin. Applaud the university for canceling that contract, and I'm calling for all other institutions to do likewise.
Can we define these prestigious journals as lobbies? And if so, why do scientists allow the journals to behave in this manner? Should they have more power over it?
Many young scholars feel powerless. They feel as though if they don't publish their paper in these brand name journals, so these publishers and the journals have been very successful in branding themselves and creating the illusion that if you don't publish in these journals, you won't have a career. People believe, and I'm afraid it's true, that those who sit in judgment for jobs, fellowship applications, and grants, they're busy people, they don't have the time to read the papers, so they look at where they're published. Or worse yet, they look at this meaningless number, journal impact factor. So I have, as you know, taken a very strong position. I will not publish in these journals. Others who are in secure positions like me have agreed and have joined this, and I think we just need to work very hard to convince others that the emperor has no clothes, and the journals Cell and Nature and Science, which I include in this powerful triumvirate of journals that have a hegemony in life sciences. These journals don't have superior judgment. They deny this, but they're looking for papers that will create a sensation, that will generate citations, that will make them look better.
What do you feel are the consequences of this triumvirate, this current publishing system for scientific progress?
Well, it distorts the subject areas that people pursue, because in order to generate more citations, these editors favor popular, fashionable topics, and so people flock to these areas. So the deep scholarship that really makes a difference often is in papers that aren't recognized right away.
Could I possibly ask you about Plan S?
Yes, well, I'm a fan of that. Other scientific societies are very nervous about this, but it's inevitable, and I think the libraries can be counted on to continue to help. The librarians everywhere that I meet in all university and research institutes are very favorably inclined to open access. I told the librarians of the UC system that I think what they could do would be to take their entire budget for subscriptions and cancel all their subscriptions and then turn the money over to the campuses. I see no reason why the entire repertoire of journals couldn't be open access. And so Plan S, I think, is a bold initiative, which I strongly support.
I wonder if there are organizations that are working against Plan S.
Yes, of course. Many, indeed, I would say most, are working against Plan S. Certainly the commercial journals are fighting it as vigorously as possible.
Can academia do more to help itself?
You know, the University of California libraries are doing what they can. I mean, they've canceled their subscription to Elsevier. If Springer Nature and Elsevier eventually come around and agree that papers should be openly accessible, that's fine. You know, I'll continue to take my crusade against these journals because I think they really, the editorial model does not work to our advantage as scholars.
Which important steps remain to be taken?
Well, I think the next step is to for scholars to come out in support of Plan S.
So I also wanted to ask, what are the roles of preprints?
Yeah, well, the preprint archives have been a really tremendous boon. Again, in the U.S., the bioarchive simply follows the model that was set 35 years ago by the physics archive. I mean, many in the physics community simply expect to post their papers when they're ready on the physics archive. This has been going on for generations. I'm optimistic that the bioarchive will do likewise. Everybody saw the value of this. So this is a good thing, but still, it's not the only thing. The experience with the physics archive is that even after all these years, people still feel they have to publish in properly peer-reviewed journals. So 80% of the things that are posted on the physics archive eventually get published somewhere in a respectable journal. But I applaud it, and I encourage all of my colleagues to post their findings as soon as they feel ready to publish. They should post it on the bioarchive and establish credit for their work.
So I read your article in The Guardian back in 2013, where you state that you no longer have any of your lab publishing in any of this triumvirate of of big papers, Nature, Cell, Science.
Yeah.
Has it occurred that any of your collaborators or anyone who maybe some of your students or postdocs who wanted to succeed in academia ended up publishing there?
You know, my record is open. I have, since I made that declaration, I have published as a co-author, I think probably a couple of papers in one of those journals. I believe I could have simply withdrawn my name, but I didn't, because I didn't want to offend the senior author by doing so, because in the instance that comes to mind, he was at that point still an untenured faculty member. And so going forward now, my position is I will not have my name, even as a co-author. My students know that they don't even, the subject never even comes up. And my students have no need, because they know if they do a good job, and their research is important by our judgment, I will do my best to get them the kind of job that they want. And I write strong letters for those people. And the letters now always include a paragraph that states why we will not be publishing in Cell, Nature, or Science. Now, of course, I know that, you know, my position is privileged because of my achievements. That piece for The Guardian, I was accused of hypocrisy, because A, sure, I'm a Nobel laureate, I can do what I want. Or B, I used to publish in those journals before I made this statement. I published in those journals because I too felt that I was, needed to have that recognition, and I view it now as a flawed position. And as far as the hypocrisy of being able to do what I want now, my attitudes about, for instance, impact factor were formed long ago, and I would argue forcefully about how valueless that number was. But, who was I? No one would listen to me. But, when you have a Nobel Prize, suddenly you have a little soapbox to stand on. And that was absolutely intended. That our editorial was written and published on the day of the Nobel Prize ceremony in 2013. That morning, my staff planned and organized a live interview kind of debate on BBC4, which I broadcast from a newsroom in Stockholm just before the award ceremony. And I thought that was the best opportunity to make a statement, and I think it worked to a large extent. People know me for that editorial in The Guardian much more than they know me for my science.
Professor Schekman, thank you very much indeed for meeting with Culturico, and we shall be publishing this video very shortly on our blog. Thank you very much.
Okay, good luck. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you.